start. It is maybe one of the more consequential ones for this reason. Jeimer Candelario's upside remains very high, but it has been a long time since the Tigers have seen that upside, especially offensively. I'll tell you this, the defensive metrics say Candelario is the better third baseman. Coaches and those who work with him and watch him every day, they actually like Dawel Lugo. So that's something just to file away in your brain. He's got a stronger arm and just a little more, they believe, first step quickness. So defensively, Dawel Lugo, in the minds of the coaches, has the edge. They also love, even though the upside with the bat of Candelario, and again, he showed it for 2 months in 2018, he's shown he can be a guy who can hit for average, hit for power, gap to gap. Lugo has shown that for a brief portion of his minor league career at Toledo last year. He has not shown that at the major league level. They still, and we've talked about this on our broadcast, they love the sound of the ball off his ball. You don't suggest anything really special with Dawel Lugo. They love that bat. I would say the edge is Candelario. He was better in spring training, home run from each side. Lugo didn't show that, but that is not something that's been decided. I think it's a really interesting battle. They're both out of options, or Lugo's out of options. So, again, what will options mean this year? We don't know that. Will they have to expose him to waivers in this changed landscape? I can tell you that while Candelario is probably the guy that they want because of the upside, Dawel Lugo is the guy that everybody should keep an eye on.
And you kind of answered this, Dan, but I'm going to ask you, you say that this is not decided. This is still up in the air. There's still a battle for this. Do you think having a second spring training, we'll call it, or a continuation of spring training could change that?
It's a great question, because I think one of the many things that we don't know is what kind of exhibition games will we see in spring training too. It sounds like, and again, I'm just trying to read the tea leaves, that it might be more along the lines of exhibition games, depending on where teams are training, whether they're their home ballpark or in Florida or Arizona, and only a few of the traditional Tigers, Yankees, Tigers, Blue Jays, whoever it might be, exhibition games. So does that make it harder to make that choice? Yeah, but they're going to have to base it on something. I think because they're also going to want to see, Daniela, this guy's come back after, let's say they start, middle of June. Now you've been off for 3 months. Maybe that guy's, wow, this guy really got after it while he was away, and he just looks more ready to play than the other guy. That absolutely will be a factor, as they try to make these decisions. There were 54 players in camp when we shut things down on March 12th.
That will definitely be interesting to see, Dan, and we're definitely looking forward to spring training returning. Art, we're going to switch gears here, and your question is hockey related. And I'm excited to hear your answer for this one. So Jeremy from Waterford, as a sniper, which past Red Wing should I try to emulate?
Well, Jeremy, if you can emulate this young guy, then you're headed to the Hockey Hall of Fame. I would say first and foremost, it has to be Brent Hall. Brent Hall's one-timer is legendary. And, the interesting thing about Brent Hall was I always liked watching him play because you always forgot that he was out on the ice. He just had a way to kind of go through the nook and crannies and just position himself and be ready to fire that puck. And, and it was just a deadly shot. His shot is so good that the second guy that you might want to emulate would be Brendan Shanahan, because Brendan Shanahan learned how to shoot that one-timer from Brent Hall. When Shanny went to St. Louis, he and Brent Hall then became really good buddies, and he taught him how to position. Now, Shanahan's a different player. He's a power forward, rough and tumble, whereas I always thought that Brent Hall was kind of the smiling assassin that way. You never, when you look at him, he's not the most athletic-looking guy, but he just found a way to get open. And like I said, in the nooks and crannies. Current Red Wing that I would try to emulate, Jeremy, would be Philip Zadina. Philip Zadina's one-timer and shot, and much to the chagrin of my good buddy Anthony Mantha there, who also has a pretty good shot, Zadina's shot is exceptional. I think he has the best one-timer on the Red Wings right now. And I used to tell the Wings this last year, Zadina has the best shot on the team, and he's not on the team because he was in Grand Rapids. So those are probably the three guys I would really look at. Brett Hall, without question, who's one-timer is legendary. Also, Brendan Shanahan, who learned the one-timer from Brett Hall, and then a young man whose father, Zadina's dad, is a longtime coach. So I would also look at, Philip Zadina as a current Red Wing. I think those are the three guys that if you can emulate one of those three, you're going to be in the league for a long time, and you're going to be very, very successful.
Yeah, Jeremy, if you end up shooting like any of those three guys, we might have to find a way to get you a contract with the Red Wings.
Well, if that's the case, Brad Galley just talked about how Steve is very proactive in a big risk taker. That's Steve Yzerman. And so with that said, I mean, look, if Yzerman's driving around and there's an outdoor pond and he sees some guy out there that's teeing off like Brett Hall, he's stopping the car and walking over there and saying, hey, how old are you? You're only 16? That's okay. I can get the work laws changed. You're going to be in a Red Wing uniform in 2 days. I guarantee it. I mean, that is Steve. I thought Brad's assessment of him was absolutely right. I mean, he's scouring the planet. Don't be surprised someday if you hear that there's an unscheduled moon landing because Yzerman's up there looking for players. I mean, that's exactly how he is. So I just think that obviously, but Zadina's there. Don't sit on Mantha either. Larkin has a good shot. I wish he'd shoot more. There's several of them that you can emulate, but the top three: Hall, Shanahan, Zadina.
All right, our third answer. I like it. And our fans are really on fire with these questions. So let's get to the third one, which again, Dan, is for you. And this one, again, I'm excited to hear your answer. This is Al from Farmington Hills. At this point in 1984, the Tigers were 35-7. Will MLB ever see a team start this hot again?
I'd say no. I mean, of course, it could always happen, but look at how unusual. Remember, it was 35-5. That's the number. It was 35-7 after losing the first two games in Seattle on their way to an incredible sweep at the hands of the Mariners to end that 35-5 streak. But 35-5 is the number we're working at. Will we ever see that again at the start of a season? No. Within a season, maybe. But you have to realize how rare these kinds of streaks are. In the last 10 years, the best any team has started a season is 29-11 through 40 games. Getting just to 30-10 is really, really rare. 35-5, I don't think will happen again in our lifetime. It was a once in a, not just generation thing, but a once in a lifetime thing, and maybe once in history thing that was special. There's a reason people still talk about it. It was just one of those things where they knew they couldn't lose. Remember, they started with 17 straight wins on the road? I mean, it was ridiculous. So, no, my answer to that would be that will not happen. Now, the fun part of this question could be, is it possible that a team could go 5-35, do the reverse of the 1984 Tigers, and that actually happened by a Tigers team? 1996, if you remember, I'm guessing Art remembers, that was a truly awful team. They gave up, let's think about this now, 1,000 runs that year. They gave up 1,000 runs that year, 6 runs a game, and they didn't only go 5-35, they went 5-39, giving up almost 8 runs a game in that stretch. It was fun to review it because that roster is filled with awful pitchers. So we will see that, and we have seen that, but no, 35-5, we will not see that again.
Well, Dan, I'm glad I don't remember that 96 season. Okay, so I'm hoping that we see the 35-5 again. All right, guys, we're going to go on to this third question. And this is a similar question to the is a hot dog a sandwich kind of thing. We're going to have some fun with this one. And the reason we're doing this is because the NHL actually asked a couple of their players, including Tyler Bertuzzi. So let's take a look at that before we get your answers.
How many holes does a straw have?
I would have to say a straw has one hole.
A straw has one hole.
I mean, I want to say 2, but I feel like that's not the right answer.
How many holes are in a straw? 2.
I'd say 1, right? It would be that. So I'm going to say 1 hole.
Okay, this one's just a little confusing because a straw would technically be hollow, right? I'm not sure. Dan, why don't we start with you in this one? Is there 1 or 2 holes?
I think the key here is, and I know Art will agree with me, are we working in 1 or 2 dimensions? If we're working in 1 dimension, that's a bead going on a necklace. That's a hole. If we're working in 2 dimensions, we're filling that straw with something, and you're actually filling it up. And that means that probably you could argue 1 hole, right? And then if you really want to get into, how many dimensions, there could be an infinite number of holes if you slice that straw up. So I'll leave it to Art to bring this one home, but I'm going to go with it all depends on which dimension we're working in.
Well, I was going to say it's like a bottomless pit, right? I mean, depending where where the straw is, I think without question a straw is 2 holes. And I agree because you can cut it up, and then you would have multi holes. One big straw, you have a hole here and you have a hole here. You say, well, but that's 1 hole because they're all connected. Not really. I mean, if you fill the hole up, the 1 hole, then what do you have? That straw is useless. It doesn't go anywhere. You can't use it. So it's 2 holes. A straw is 2 holes, period. I mean, Evander Kane, I think if you look at his expression, I think he was incensed and almost insulted. What do you mean? It's 2. Evander, you're absolutely right. It's 2. It's 2. How can you not say that it's not 2? I mean, 1 hole. God bless the other guys, because I think they all said 1 hole. One player was on the fence thinking, well, do I think with my brain or do I react with my heart? Because my brain's telling me 2, but I'm going to say 1 because this is a trick question. Overthinking it. And then the other guys, and God bless Tyler, we all love him. It's 2 holes. It's 2 holes. It's not 1. It's just not 1.
Well, Art, you made a very.
I knew Art would have the answer.
Well, Double D, don't you agree with me? I mean, truly, it can't be 1.
Again, it all depends on how long is the straw.
Don't try to straddle it, Double D. Go right for it. Just stand up now on your beautiful outdoor porch there and just say, my God, a straw is 2 holes. Kind of like the old network thing, or Peter Finch, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. A straw is 2 holes. It is 2. End of story.
Please do that out your window right now, Art. I want to know what your neighbors think.
This is the backyard window, so it would be me and the bird feeder. I'm screaming at the bird feeder. But but if I was out where the big picture window is, I would definitely do it. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what I used to do every day at 5 o'clock as a kid. I loved Alvin and the Chipmunks. So every day at 5 o'clock, I would open up the front door. I'd stand out on my porch and I'd scream, Alvin! Because if you watch the beginning of that show, Dave Seville would be going nuts calling Alvin. And then Alvin would just say, really in a meek voice, coming, Dave. I just used to think that was hilarious. So I guess to answer it, I can always... I've screamed out on my porch since I was a little boy, so I have no problem doing that. I will do it, and maybe I'll try to, make it a Zoom or something, or a TikTok or Tic Tac, whatever it's called. But a straw is 2 holes.
I hope
We're getting some insight, aren't we, Daniela, into We're getting some
we are.
insight
And
into
I
the
think
history of art and what made him the person that he is.
this is
Well, this
fans
is
love art. I want their comments on this though.
this show is therapeutic for me. I let a lot out, you know. I might as well be laying on a couch, you know, just free thoughts of whatever comes in my mind. I just say, but you know. But anyway, straw, 2 holes.
All right. That straw 2 holes. We get it, Art. Again, fans, if you're watching and you have an opinion on this one, we want it in the comments. I want to hear what your thoughts are on this, and we'll maybe talk about this again later in the show. But Dan, before we let you go, I wanted to give a shout out to some Tigers fans because we've got Tigers fans watching the show from all over the world today. Let me see what these names were. It was Louis in France, Ryan in Colorado, and James in Florida. Awesome. He's in Lakeland, so he's probably really missing Tigers baseball too.
That's awesome. I love it. We hear from people around the globe, and that's one of the neatest things about this era of communications, that you can literally listen. We have a good friend who's over in he's a ski instructor, and I want to say Norway, and he sends us pictures. I'm listening to the game. It's just like spring training, you know. It's amazing. So yes, that's a fun thing for me to hear from fans around the world, because they are truly listening everywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing. And shout out to everybody watching. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And Dan, thank you so much for joining us again for the mailbag. Always great to have you.
You bet. Great to
be with you. And a big thank you to our friends at Little Caesars. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust. Just $7, you guys. That's just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. I know we've already had a jam-packed show for you guys today, but we've got so much more coming up on the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. We're going to hear from Dan Petry, Ken Kale, and even Anthony Mantha later in the show. It's going to be great. And for now, we're going to get to Bet You Didn't Know. And I hear this is a hard one. We've got to bring in Carly today because we're getting back to 2 truths and a lie, thanks to our friends at Motor City Casino. And you know, this is not my strong suit. I think you guys all know that, but we're ready. I'm ready for this one today. Okay. So Carly, I don't know. Are you ready? I hear it's a tough one.
I'm not feeling confident.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. Again, this is Bet You Didn't Know, presented by Motor City Casino Hotel. You guys, 2 truths and a lie. Art, what do you have for Carly and I today?
Well, I want, before we get into true truths and a lie, you know, I monitor constantly the situation, and it appears the NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman is going to make an announcement at 4:30 today in a press conference to announce and unveil the 2014 playoff. So that's something that's going to be, you know, obviously we'll talk about it on Thursday's show, but that's something that we should probably keep aware of. I mean, obviously it was headed that way. I'm really eager to see it, but it's all over the place now. So, you know, multiple sources are reporting that the NHL is having a press conference at 4:30 today, Commissioner Gary Bettman, to unveil the 2014 playoff format. We'll see if it's a best 3 out of 5, if they go to 4 to 7. If the top 4 teams have to play each other for positioning, which I don't think they want to do. So it's all starting to come home a little bit. So we'll definitely talk about that. Now let's get back to the task at hand, which is truth and a lie. And all right, here we go. Now, first off,
Oh boy.
Fox Sports Detroit is showing the 1971 All-Star Classic, which was at Tiger Stadium. We've talked about that. Remember, Reggie Jackson. Did you know that he hit the light tower? He didn't hit the ball out of Tiger Stadium in that game.
We know.
There were a lot of Hall of Fame. Do you remember that? All right. So let's go to the 71 All-Star game. And here are the 3. One of them is a lie. The other 2 are truths. Okay. Up first.
Okay.
Al Kaline, the legendary Tiger, threw out the ceremonial first pitch in the 1971 All-Star game. This was this All-Star game. He appeared in 18 All-Star games as a Tiger, which is astounding. Did he throw out the ceremonial first pitch? Second, this was the AL's first All-Star game win since 1962. And thirdly, 2 former Tiger managers were involved in this game. Okay, talk among yourselves. Let's see if you can get it. Carly, I mean, you're still batting 1,000. You're still batting 1,000. And Daniela, I mean, she's never going to catch up, but but she is. I'm sorry, Daniela. I love you like a. Hey,
oh man.
I love you. I love you both like little sisters, but Daniela, as a family member now, because I've included us all, I got to be straight with you. You're not going to catch Carly. You're just not. So, but you can make it close.
Oh man, I have a lot riding on this. Okay, so let me reread okay. K-line. Okay. Danielle, are you going to go first?
I don't know. Art, who's going first?
Oh, wait a second. This is like Sophie's Choice. What do you mean? I mean, this is tough for me. Well, all right. I'll tell you what. I will say, Daniela, you go first.
All right.
It's tough love, Daniela. It's tough love.
Okay. This 1971.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I really don't know.
Can we phone a friend?
Yeah, is it like? Can I ask the audience?
Yeah, right.
I'm just gonna.
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna literally eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'm gonna do it real quick. All right, I landed on LK line threw out the ceremonial first pitch. That's what I'm going with as a lie.
Final answer. Final answer. That's the lie. Okay, Carly. A lot of pressure.
We're both going in. We're both going in on A. We're both going in on A.
LK.
Yeah.
Okay, LK line throwing out the first pitch. You're absolutely correct. Carly, your streak's intact.
Oh,
yes. LK line played in the game, but he did not throw out the first pitch. Tigers Hall of Famer Charlie Gehringer threw out the first pitch. Gehringer was also the honorary captain of the AL squad in 1986, a game that the AL won. Charlie Gehringer, probably a forgotten Tiger. As much as I like Lou Whitaker, if you have to go all-time Tigers, probably have to go with Charlie. Obviously, Al, 18 All-Star games. It would be highly irregular, I would think, that if a player who's actually an All-Star goes out and throws out the ceremonial first pitch. But, he did not. And this was the AL's first win since 1962. This would also be the AL's only victory until 1983. At one time, when I was growing up, the NL dominated the All-Star game. They were 1-19. Even though they were 1-19, if you look at the World Series that were played in that span, the NL was only 12-8. So they only had a 4-game advantage. 2 former Tiger managers were involved in this All-Star game. Billy Martin was an assistant coach for the AL side, and Sparky Anderson managed the NL side. Sparky would also manage the Tigers for the American League in the 1985 All-Star game. I think we touch upon that with Dan Petry. We'll talk to Peaches about that. But now things have really switched because in the last 23 games, All-Star games, where now they play for the World Series, home fielded series, the American League is now 19-3-1. So obviously this is cyclical, but if you look at it though, that 71 All-Star game, it's a classic. It's on TV tonight. I suggest everybody watch it. A lot of Hall of Famers, a lot of home runs, and it's always good to see Tiger Stadium back in the day. Now, I think in 71, the stadium was still all green. The one thing I can remember as a little boy walking up at Tiger Stadium, you'd walk up that ramp and you'd see the infield for the first time and everything was green and the stands were all green. And then they changed it to blue and orange, the Tigers colors. But this game tonight, watch it. And I know that Daniela and Carly are going to be watching it because they know that you're going to see Charlie Gehringer throw out the first pitch, not Al Kaline. So, again, we're going to have to make these tougher. We're going to have to make these tougher because you two both are riding a hot streak.
That was process of elimination, honestly.
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't.
I
didn't even put it together that Kaline probably played in that game. That didn't even click in my head. To be
I was
honest
looking
with
at
you.
the date. That was the only thing I thought of was 1971. I was like, okay, wait, like when were his playing years? Like my mind is going like this. I don't know, man.
Well,
I'm a pretty good guesser.
I'm going to say this. I definitely think Daniela was clueless on this question, and she guessed right. So, but Carly, you're rational. You thinking, are you sure you graduated from Michigan State? Are you sure you didn't go? I mean, Daniela, she's got her degree right there in the back.
I mean,
really?
Come on, you can see I'm a good guesser. I'm a good guesser. I'm smart. Give me some credit, Art. Go green.
Yeah, I do. And you know what I love about you, Daniela, is the way you always pat yourself on the back. I mean, not Daniela. I mean, Carly, the way you pat yourself on the back. Daniela.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? I'm going to give you major points. You definitely are starting to make a move. You're never going to catch Carly, but you are making a move.
Yeah,
you have to
at least give me some.
Like, I hope
I own what I don't know.
That's true. But I hope people know that we are not getting hints. Like, we have no idea.
No,
like, we don't know the question before, so we can't do any research or anything. This is total just like spur of the moment kind of process of elimination guessing game for me on most of these questions.
This arrives at my house very early, about 6 a.m. on the day we do the show. So the next time we do Two Truths and a Lie, the accounting firm of Ernst & Young, who does the Academy Awards, even though they screwed that up a couple of years ago, or at least Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway did, reading the wrong film as best film. So I get these, and then I open them up and I study them, and I think there's no way either one of them is going to get this. And I thought this one was a rather difficult one, but I'll have to talk to Ernst & Young, and we'll make sure the next one's a little tougher.
Please don't.
And that does it for today's bet you didn't know.
Danielle's ready to move on.
Thank you to Motor for bringing us Bet You Didn't Know this week and every week here on the Word on Woodward, presented by our friends at Raymond. And Carly, I know that you have been manning the social media accounts even during the Memorial Day weekend, and we had to have some good stuff pop up on some social media channels there. So what do you got for us from over the weekend?
That's right. I've been scouring social media and I found a few fun things over the weekend. First, let's check out this picture of Ken Daniels and Mickey Redmond, two good friends that really could not stay away from each other. They miss each other too much. You guys have to notice the hockey stick between them. Safely social distancing while probably enjoying, I'm assuming, a good ginger ale. And now switching gears to Tigers. Fox Sports Detroit hosted a Zoom call, a reunion, if you will. They had a competition between Craig Monroe and Brandon Inch to bring as many former Tigers players and coaches as they could on the Zoom chat. So they kept popping in left and right without telling them why they were being invited to the Zoom chat. They kind of just sent them the information, and these guys piled in. Check it out. I mean, they were able to get a few different players and coaches on. We had everyone from Sean Casey to Jim Leland, and even Justin Verlander joined. So it was really great to watch. I think they were throwing back a couple drinks and really reminiscing and having fun over the weekend. So that was really cool to see. Check it out on Fox Sports Detroit Facebook if you haven't seen it yet. So I will join you guys later in the show. Make sure you continue to send in your questions. I have it on my Instagram story. You can send in questions or just pop in the chat on Facebook or YouTube, and we will answer them at the end of the show.
Thank you, Carly. That was great. How awesome was it to see Ken and Mick back together? That made me smile. I know I saw that over the weekend. Loved it. So yeah, I can't wait till they're back in the booth together, but it was great to see them social distancing and enjoying themselves over the weekend. Guys, we're still going to have Ken Kale join us and Anthony Mantha, so we've still got a jam-packed show for you. You don't want to go anywhere, but right now we're going to talk some Tigers baseball. Let's move into Brush Street Beat, presented by our friends at McLaren. And today's guest, everybody, I don't think this man needs an introduction, but it's Dan Petry, former Tiger and current member of the Fox Sports Detroit Tigers broadcast team. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. Hey, you're making your Word on Woodward debut.
I am. And, Yeah, I think I do need an introduction. It's been a long, long time since I've played, but just so happy, like you said, to be a part and hopefully be a part of the 2020 Tiger season, should they come up with something, and hopefully starting in July.
Dan, let's start right there. That was your first season, the last season was, I should say, with the Detroit Tigers as a member of the broadcast team. How did that go for you? Did you enjoy it?
You know, it was so much fun. And really the biggest thing is just being back and being a part of the ball club. I mean, I've so-called pinched hit, you know, for guys when they've had some illnesses or got injured or something like that. And I did some work with Dan Miller on Fox too, but never really a full-time position. And last year was a full-time position, and just being a part of from spring training all the way to the end. And it just brought back so many memories, and, you know, just talking and being around the players. And, you know, Gardy is such a pleasure to be around, and sit in his office every day when they're at home and hearing his media scrum and everything he feels about the game and about his current players, and who's doing this, who's not doing that, and who's looking good for the future. I mean, it was just tremendous to be a part of the ball club again. And that's why I'm just missing it, along with all the other fans out there, just missing this baseball season so much right now.
Dan, you know, don't sell yourself short. I mean, you were a Tiger for 11 years. You're a World Series champion. You won 119 ball games in the Old English D. I want to go back to the beginning. You're from California. When you're drafted and you're in Michigan, of all places, what was that transition like for you to come from, the Golden State to the Wolverine State?
Well, I always laugh because, when I was drafted, it was done a lot differently. I still happened to be asleep, and my mom had gotten the morning newspaper and woke me up and said, "Hey, Dan, you were drafted in the 4th round by the Tigers." So that was really the way that I found out that I had been drafted. So that was kind of a strange situation. But I think what helped me too was just the fact of coming up through the minor league system, and then going to Evansville, Indiana, first gave me that first real sense of being in the Midwest. But I always say that if you would have told me to go point to the state of Michigan, on a map, I'm not sure I could have done it in high school. Now, I'm not going to swear by that, but and now I make my home here now, so things have certainly come a long way since being drafted as a 17-year-old.
Perhaps maybe the best thing about you being drafted by the Tigers is that your son Jeff, who's a very accomplished NHL player, do you think if you would have been drafted by a West Coast team that he ever would have been a hockey player?
That's a great observation, because that was one of the things when I got done playing. I said to both the boys, I have an older boy, Matt, 2 years older than Jeff, that, hey, I'll coach you guys all the way up in baseball. And but if you're going to live here, or we're going to live here in Michigan, you're going to have to learn how to play hockey. So I got both of them involved. And of course, I know nothing about hockey still to this day. So it was just a matter of getting them skating lessons and just being a dad, just saying, here, I'm going to drive you. I'll help you, get dressed and tie your skates and all that kind of stuff, and get you out there. But whatever you're going to earn on your own, because I can't help you here. And that, you're right. That's one of the big things is I don't ever think that they probably would have got involved in hockey as a youth being out in California.
Dan, you were part of the 1985 All-Star team. I think Lance Parrish was hurt, but he was a member of that team. I think there were 5 or 6 Tigers on it. Sparky was the manager. Okay, maybe the National League won 6-1. Maybe your ERA somehow is 54 from that game, which is astounding. I don't even know. Is that a record, by the way? Is that the highest ERA in All-Star history? But I'm just jabbing you a little bit, Dan. I love you, but I've got to.
I'm sure somebody's got an affinity ERA. I bet you.
Oh yeah, well we'll have to check that out. But I'm curious. I mean, the All-Star game, and maybe a little bit of the luster is taken off because of interleague play now. But those were were you in awe, even though you know these hitters, of being in that game and going up against the very best in the National League? Because back then, I don't think you saw them quite as much as you would see them today.
No, and as I was getting ready for today, they kind of hinted that you might bring up the 1985 All-Star game. So I was kind of thinking back to that game, and so many fond memories, and really as long as that's been 35 years, it's still very fresh in my mind. Again, my performance was not the best, but it was just such a different atmosphere. As many Tigers as there were on that particular team, by the time I got in the game, I don't think any of them were left. And I was throwing to Rich Gedman, who I'd never thrown to before. And, when you're playing the game, generally you're not nervous. I mean, you might have some butterflies, going through before the start of the game. But that particular game, when I got in, I was nervous. It was like, man, who are these guys? And you're facing National League hitters. You're not with your teammates. Fortunately, it was in the Metrodome, so it was a familiar stadium. National League umpires, just a lot of things, and just one little quick little story was I was in awe of the being in the locker room with so many great American League players who I respected and got to compete against. And remember, one thing that stood out was Don Mattingly. I think we were sitting right next to one another, just kind of shooting the breeze. And I remember him making fun of my tan or lack of a tan at that particular point. So that's one thing that really sticks out, is him kind of chiding me about being white as a ghost.
Let's go back to 84. That was your 6th season in the big leagues. You were with the Tigers. And I'm kind of curious. 35-5 start, best start in baseball history, led wire to wire. We know what kind of team that was, but coming up through the ranks, as I said, that was season 6. Do you see maybe some similarities between the 2020 Tigers or what they're going through, and perhaps maybe what you experienced leading up to a World Series team?
Well, I think the blueprint might be the same as what they're trying to do. They're trying to build from within, from their draft picks, and get a nucleus of players, much like we did back then. If you take just the draft that I was involved in '76, there was Alan Trammell, myself, and Jack Morris came just from that one draft. So I think that's very similar. But look at the 2020 Tigers that have so many people on 1-year contracts. So who knows how many of them are going to be around next year? You've got the free agents, Jonathan Scope and CJ Crone and Austin Romine, and they're on 1-year deals. Could they be even? Well, now in this shortened season, they may not get traded at a deadline, but so much competition in the outfield where you've got people just playing for their jobs. So some of these people are still establishing themselves, and then they'll also build from that terrific group of young pitchers, but also some of these position players who haven't quite yet made names for themselves. But I think that's kind of what they're trying to do, is build from that minor league system and then fill in with outside pitch pieces, much like the '84 team did with Guillermo Hernandez, Darrell Evans, Dave Bergman, people like that.
Dan, you mentioned it briefly that there are some terrific prospects in the pitching pool there for the Tigers, and you spent some time at spring training watching a couple of them, in Matt Manning, Casey Mize, and we've got Tarek Skubal too. Being the pitcher that you were, when you watch them, what's kind of your evaluation of those three, and how do you think they're going to be in the league?
That's why, again, it's so disappointing. I had the greatest week down in spring training. When the team was on the road, those guys stayed back, and I got to watch them work out. I got to watch them throw their bullpens. I even, talk to them. I don't like to bother any of those guys. I have a job to do, but I just, I let them, keep the distance, and they don't want to talk to this old guy. So, I just kept my distance and just observed. And, and don't forget about Alex Baedo. He's, kind of under the radar a little bit, but those four really, really look good. And the thing that really impresses me is, not only their stuff, okay, but it's how they root for one another. You know, there's competition, certainly, because you want to have competition. If I were Casey Mize, I'd want to be the first one to make it out of that group. If I were Tarek Skubal, I'd want to be the first one out of the group. But if you talk to those guys, they pretty much say, well, yeah, there's competition. We all want to make it, but we really want to make it all at the same time. So that's what I love about it. There's no jealousy. There's no, you know, putting one above the other. And that's where good teams start, is where they're all united, pulling for one another. They're not going to all get called up at the same time. You know, there'll be one here, one there, and another one maybe within a few days or a few weeks of one another. But once they get up there, they're going to form that really solid nucleus. And again, which I think good teams are made of.
Well, Dan, unfortunately, our time has run out with you, but thank you so much. We really could chat with you all day if it was possible. Thank you so much for joining us for Brush Street Beat today. It was great to hear your insight, and we really, really hope that you're working some Tigers games very soon.
Oh, me too. And thank you guys for having me, and really good questions. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. A big thank you to our friends at McLaren Healthcare for presenting Brush Street Beat this week and every week here on the Word on Woodward. Guys, now we're going to pivot into Downtown Hockey Town, presented by Labatt Blue Light. And today, we've got a little bit of breaking news. As Art mentioned back in Bet You Didn't Know, it seems that Gary Bettman is going to hold a press conference today at 4:30. We've seen the announcement kind of everywhere now. And we're expecting that he's going to announce kind of the end of the regular season and into a playoff format. Ken Kale, there he is, joining us for this one. So, Ken, let's just get right into this. What are your thoughts on this 24-team playoff format, and what do you think Gary Bettman's announcement is going to be?
Well, I guess we can just speculate right now, but I tend to agree with you that he'll probably announce the end of the regular season, and he'll also announce that there will be a 24-team tournament or playoff teams that are going to be into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, you know, I think that's really good. I think it's great, first of all, that we've got hockey coming back pretty soon, I hope, and also that some of the teams that were on the bubble will have an opportunity to get in there and compete for the Stanley Cup. So I think that's really good. You know, other than that, I don't know what else he might add. Maybe he'll talk a little bit about, you know, plans to get going earlier as far as, you know, training and opening sites up, and we'll see from there. But it'll be nice to hear from the commissioner. But again, I think for all fans that, you know, see the news, that they're happy about it, and we all can't wait to get hockey back.
Art, let me ask you this. We know that the 24-team playoff would not include the Red Wings. Obviously, they would not be included in that. What does this mean for them? We know it's the end of their season. Do they immediately start looking forward to next season, or what do they do during this period?
Well, I think that's exactly what they have to do, is that they have to somehow stay in shape. I think as everything starts to open up slowly but surely in the respective, you know, homes and countries that they're in, I think that they'll also, you know, start skating. I think the biggest thing that they want to do, talking to the players that I have, is that this is the longest they haven't been on skates. And because they're such gifted athletes, even though, I mean, I've watched hockey my whole life, I love the sport, you almost sometimes forget that they're actually skating. You know, it just is so effortless for them. But they need to be on the ice. They need to skate. You know, everything is breaking really fast. But now the NHL has scheduled a 3 p.m. phone call with general managers. So either Gary Bettman is saying, this is what I've decided at 3, so it's 4:30 press conference. Maybe they'll decide on the draft. I know that it's speculated about that perhaps the draft is going to be on June 26th. So, you know, again, until it's actually announced, we really don't know. A lot of things are happening. Obviously, the NHL, NBC, you're going to see it's on NBC Sports. It's also on the NHL Network. So he's going to announce that. What the GMs are going to announce, I would say, and Daniela, we alluded to this earlier when we were talking about the big three. I think that everything got the ball rolling when Gary Bettman said, look, we're going to have the draft on June 7th, because the NHL commissioner can set the draft date. That doesn't have to be approved by the Board of Governors. That doesn't have to be approved by the Executive Committee of the NHLPA. So once he started doing this, saying, look, we've been off since March 12th. We've been on pause. We got to start doing something. And I think, and obviously health and safety is still number one. But as everything has eased up a little bit and we're slowly trying to get back to a common ground, shall I say. So I think this is fascinating. I think it's going to be fascinating because whatever the GMs are talking about at 3 o'clock, I would assume that Gary Bettman's going to let us in on it at 4:30. So I know at 4:30, me and also Kenny Cal are going to be watching that eagerly, as I think all of us are, to find out exactly what's going on. I mean, I look at these matchups. Now, I know this came out last week, but Toronto versus Columbus, the Islanders versus Florida, Colorado versus the Rangers, Pitt versus Montreal. I mean, that's incredible. I think the big thing that we have to look at by far is, are these going to be a best 3 out of 5, which teams don't want to play Carey Price. If you're the Pittsburgh Penguins, if Carey Price is on a roll, he just has to win 3 games. Carey Price is good enough to win 3 games. We all know in a 7-game series, that 4th one is always the toughest. So, and then you have, Sid Crosby, who does miracles. He's a big-time player. Sorry, Detroit, but he really is. So I'm really looking forward to it. And then the West, I mean, their matchups are just as great, but I'm concentrating on the East now. As you can tell, I'm all psyched up. I can't wait to see what's happening. We're going to get some movement. Hopefully it'll work out. And, and I'm more eager, I guess, for me. I want to see how this draft plays out. And I want to say one more thing. I want to bring Ken in on this. We both know Mickey and Kenny Daniels very, very well. Do you think, as the ginger ales were flowing there, that those guys put on the mask and kind of embrace and said, "I miss you, buddy. I miss you, buddy"? I mean, I can actually see that happening.
I don't know about that, Art. They're practicing safe distancing amongst each others. And I kind of like Mickey. He had the hook on Daniels there a little bit with the hockey stick, making sure he didn't get any closer than where he was. But, it's good to see Ken and Mickey together with their dogs. And it was a great photo. And, like I said, I'm looking forward to the NHL getting back. And the other thing, too, is from a personal point of view, I would like to see all the teams come back in some way. And what I mean by that is it would be nice to see the 7 teams that won't make the playoffs in some way, maybe play some exhibition games against some of the teams that are going to qualify, kind of like tune-up games. I know it doesn't mean anything, but I just think it would be nice to get all the teams involved so fans in all the cities could somehow just get back hockey once again before they started the playoffs. But I don't think that's going to happen.
It's interesting, Ken, because what was been brought up too is that what they may end up doing, is that take the 7 teams that aren't part of the 24 teams, have them play kind of a tournament, round robin tournament for draft position, which is kind of odd because let's say the Red Wings end up winning that, as we know they probably would, because if they ended up winning it, they would get the number 1 pick. So if you win it, you get the number 1 pick. And if you go out in the first round, you might get, pick 8 or 7, however, 7, I guess. So, I mean, I think they would like to bring those 7 teams back in some capacity. And maybe that's what the GMs are going to be talking about at 3 o'clock today. Maybe that's what Gary Bettman will also reveal at 4:30, because I'm with you. I think everybody, especially a market like Detroit, I mean, original 6 team, some young players that are up and coming that we really want to see. It would be great. It doesn't look likely, but we'll see. Stranger things have happened.
All right, you guys, I have one more question for the both of you that I want to touch on. You both touched on this briefly. Kind of the return plan is going to include some kind of, let's call it a training camp for lack of a better term, or something like that for a couple of weeks to get the guys' feet back, have them skate a little bit. What do you think that's going to look like? Again, this is all speculation right now. So Ken, in your opinion, is it going to be a 3-week thing? Are they going to play exhibition games? What do you think it's going to be?
I don't know. I don't think they're going to play any exhibition games. I just think they're going to be able to somehow get together and have a 2.5, 3-week training camp and then get right back into the playoffs and crown a champion. That's what I think is going to happen. But as Art mentioned, and he alluded to earlier, you've got to be able to skate and you got to get in shape. And if you're not in shape and you haven't been skating for 2-3 months, you can easily pull a groin and get injured, and you don't want that to happen. The other thing, too, is even though you make the announcement that this is your plan for the playoffs, you still have to take into account safety for the players, testing, areas where the teams are going to play in. There was talk about hubs where there might be 4 different cities where 6 teams each would play in each different hub. And then you've got to actually kind of put them in a bubble so that, you know, the players become safe. And again, it all has to do about testing and player safety. And I think if they can come away with something after this announcement and get something to where the players are safe and everybody with the teams are safe, then I think they'll go ahead and move forward. But again, that could take a little time too. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, Ken's absolutely right, Danielle. I mean, let's look at it. Oh, I'm sorry, Danielle. I was going to say, this is going to be phase 2 is going to be. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. The phase 2 is this like, you know, the 6 teams and all that. If somebody is going to, if someone checks, you know, heaven forbid, but if somebody, you know, is tested positive, I think it shuts the whole thing down. You know, if guys are starting to show up in informal, you know, phase 3 is going to be training camp. That will be training camp, but you have to get by phase 2 yet. Plus, you have to have these players come back, and they're going to have to be quarantined if they're not in the United States for 2 weeks. And so, I mean, you know, the timeline, they're going to have to start getting this going. I think that's why we're seeing all this stuff happen right now. And you know, and don't forget, and Ken, I think they're going to have to expand the rosters of these 24 teams because injuries are going to be part of it. I think they're going to want to bring in as many guys from their AHL clubs as possible just to scrimmage and have them, you know, go up against each other too. I think we're not just going to see all 23, 24 guys just come back. I think you're going to see at least 30 players come back, meaning if the Red Wings were qualifying or if somehow these 7 teams are playing, I think you'd see Joe Veleno. I think you'd see, you know, if they can get Mo Seider back from Germany. I think you would see, you know, obviously Giovanni Smith. You know, those kind of guys would be on that expanded roster. So this is going to be fascinating, absolutely fascinating to see how this plays out. Hopefully it plays out. Everyone's healthy. But as Ken said, you've got, you know, the first thing is you have to adhere to the guidelines of each individual state. You know, whatever they're doing, whatever they're on lockdown. We're on lockdown here till June 12th. So the Red Wings couldn't even come back until after June 12th, you know. I mean, maybe this 6th thing, I don't know. I guess maybe the governor could give a special mandate or whatever. But, you know, this is pretty cool. I mean, this is, I'm eager to see some movement, but we have to put the brakes on it because, as we know, things change every single day in the environment that we're living in right now.
Well, the thing is, it's a good start right now. So with the commissioner coming on and making his announcement, you know, it's a positive thing. Now you just have to work out everything else to make it happen. So, you know, they're heading in the right direction. I think for Hockey Star fans all across the United States and all over the world and Canada, they're just happy that an official announcement will be made by the commissioner, and then we'll go forward. And I think that's a step in the right direction right now because we all miss hockey.
I think you're both right on this one. And then there's the other issue that we kind of touched on our last show about the Canadian and U.S. border being closed right now. So that might be something that Bettman talks about in the time frame of everything, because you can't really have players traveling until they decide to open the border, which I think, if I'm remembering correctly, is like the end of June right now. So that will be another really important factor. And both of you guys also mentioned the draft a little bit. So we're going to switch gears, have some fun here before we wrap up our Downtown Hockey Town segment. And I know everyone's a little high on Alexis Lafreniere as the number 1 pick, and he's probably going to be that number 1 pick here. But let's talk about some of the other guys that we see on this list here. You Quentin Byfield, Tim Stützle. Ken, I want to start with you. Just in general, who do you think is the second best option on that list? Let's say the Red Wings had the 2nd pick. Lafreniere goes first. Who do you think they're taking?
Well, that's a good question because, you know, you look at Quentin Byfield and he's got size and, you know, he's really a strong hockey player. And I think the consensus is that for most scouts, he could probably go number 2 in the draft. But on the other hand, you know, the Red Wings, I think, they kind of like that Stützle kid. I mean, he's got a game that's similar to Patrick Kane, in my opinion. He's quick on his skates. He's difficult to defend against. And, you know, he can both play the center position and the wing position. We talked about that earlier. So anytime you can play different positions, you're you're valuable to a team. And, I think the Red Wings right now are in a position where they could use a center iceman, and he could play center. He could play the wing. He's highly competitive. So it'll be interesting to see what Steve Yzerman does. But both Quinton Byfield and Stutzel are really good hockey players. And then if you want to throw a defenseman in the mix, you look at Drysdale. He was terrific, too, in the World Juniors. And I think he's going to be a can't-miss, great hockey player on the blue line for years to come in the NHL.
Art, I know in your mind, Lafreniere is already a Red Wing. I know we've touched on that one already. But let's say that the Red Wings are picking second. Who's your second pick?
Well, didn't Ken award the captaincy to Lafreniere last week, or for the Red Wings? I mean, I thought he did. I don't know. Maybe I dreamed that. I'll tell you, I think this is going to. That's right, without question. Him, Zadina, and Mantha, you got 150 goals right there between the three of those guys. I mean, Red Wings are going to be a powerhouse very soon. I'll tell you what, Byfield is a big guy. I go by what Craig Button said. Craig Button said that, listen, he just doesn't know how good he is. He's one of the youngest players in the draft, too. So Byfield is intriguing, but he needs a little more seasoning. He's put up great numbers, but he's still learning. He's a young man. He's still learning how great he can be. He's 6'4". He's 215 pounds at 17. Can you imagine him, even at 20, how big he's going to be? And, and he's coordinated, and he's starting to learn the game, and he's starting to, grow into his own body, physically and mentally. He would be tough, I think, to pass up, especially since the Red Wings need center. But then on the other hand, Stützle has played center until he got to Anaheim in the Pro League, much like Dylan Larkin his first year in Detroit. Dylan was not a center. They moved him to the wing. Obviously, he played with Henrik Zetterberg, which was a good education for Dylan. But I think that Stützle can play center, and he is like a Patrick Kane type of player, and he brings the game to him. I think it's going to be very, very difficult choice that the Red Wings are going to have to make if they don't get Lafreniere at 1. If they're down to 2 between Stützle and Byfield, and then I would think if they get 3 somehow, they fall down to 3. Whomever takes Byfield or Stützle second, they'll probably go with the other one. And I think if they go down to 4, I think Steve would go with without question. I think he'd go with Jamie Drysdale again. And I defer to Craig Button on this. Craig Button says he is a number 1, not a 1 or 2. He is a number 1 defenseman in the National Hockey League. So Jamie Drysdale. So I would certainly, and the Red Wings, their whole blue line is going to be right-handed shots. But I would look at Jamie Drysdale as somebody that could definitely be in the mix at 4. And then if Steve really is going to think out of the box like he normally does, I know people think I'm crazy, but, depending on where he thinks the Red Wings truly are, he being Steve Yzerman, I would almost think that, what the heck, it might take Askarov, a couple of years to make it out of the, out of Russia. But Askarov is, he's really young, 17, 6'3", best goalie since Carey Price. We've already talked about Carey Price a few times today. Does Steve think, look, we're going to need a goalie of the future. When we're going to make a move, we need goaltenders. I know it's really high to go 4. It really is. And I don't see the Red Wings trading down at all. But who knows? Maybe Steve throws a monkey wrench into it all, just like he did last year with Mo Seider, which worked out pretty well.
Ken, I'm going to ask you to follow that up because as Art said, I think we've talked about this before, that 4 seems really high to take a goalie in the draft. So Askarov, let's say the Red Wings take some of their later picks and maybe deal up to get a late first-round pick or something happens. Do you think that is a possibility that Steve Yzerman is maybe looking at getting another first-round pick?
Well, there's always possibilities for anything when it comes to the draft, and I guess it all depends on your position and where you want to go. As for Askarov, the things I'm hearing about him is that he's actually a terrific goaltender, and he could be the best goaltender prospect since Carey Price was drafted back in 2005. So, they're high on him. He didn't really have a good World Juniors. He struggled a little bit. But with that said, he's dominant at his age group, and, he covers a lot of the net. and he's got tremendous skill and ability, and he doesn't use a lot of wasted energy out there. So, that'll be interesting to see what happens. But I'm really hoping that the Red Wings get the 1 or 2 pick. And, if you start drafting 3, 4, you're still going to get a good player. But I think where the Red Wings are positioned right now and the way their season went, I think it's fair for them to have the number 1 or number 2 pick.
Hey, as I mentioned, Art has already told us that Lafreniere is a Red Wing. I think he might even have the jersey already. I'm not sure, but he might.
Is he going to wear number 9? They're going to bring that one out of retirement or what?
Well, I guess the Howe family, I guess Mark and Marty and Murray and Kathy would have to say, yeah, Dad would want Lafreniere. Even 5 years ago when Lafreniere was a mere 7-year-old or something, Dad saw him play and said, if that kid becomes a Red Wing, I want him to have my number. That's the only way number 9's ever coming out of retirement, or one of the Howe grandchildren or great grandchildren becomes a Red Wing. Maybe then they pull 9 out of it. But Lafreniere is definitely the guy. The Red Wings get him. Again, going back to what Craig Button said, and Craig Button just doesn't, he's not verbose or just makes stuff up. I mean, he studies this. He's respected throughout the National Hockey League. And, when he told me that Lafreniere is minimum, his first year in the NHL is going to have 60 points. 60 points would be, if he had 60 points at this stage when they had the pause and he was a Red Wing, he'd be the leading scorer. And, but he says, 65, 70, the sky's the limit for him. So, and I can't believe the resemblance to Jack Eichel for Lafreniere. They must be related somewhere down the line. I mean, it looks a lot like him to me, and I don't know why I look at that stuff, but I do. But Lafreniere is the real deal. And, 60, 65 points as a rookie minimum. You can't go wrong. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Then it gets tricky. Do you go Stützle and Byfield at 2, one of those 2 guys, and then whomever falls, if the Red Wings get 3 somehow, they'll take the one that doesn't go second, and then Jamie Drysdale 4th. I mean, if they didn't have a lot of defensemen that they like already and a lot of right-handed shooting defensemen, and Ken Daniels alluded to this last week, they might go with Jamie Drysdale. But if Steve feels in his heart and Drapes and all those guys, if they think, look, he's a legitimate number 1. Drysdale is a number 1 defenseman. As much as we like Mo Seider, he has the potential to be that. But if he's a can't miss at number 1, I don't know. If you have a wealth of defensemen and right-handed shots, which are at a premium, maybe you make a deal. Maybe you make a trade. The only way I see them moving up in the draft is Steve would almost have to take all 3 second-round picks, and I know he wants players, and give them to a team and get the 7th pick or something overall. And then maybe, he gets whomever the Red Wings, wherever they draft in the first 4, and then maybe Askarov could fall to them at 6 or 7. But that's basically a pipe dream. If they don't take Askarov at 4, they're not going to get him. They're just not going to get him, which is another thing to think about if you want a goalie of the future. Look, we're not going to, we're still in the rebuilding mode here. I think, I'm talking as if I'm a Red Wing official. So if they're in a rebuilding mode, then I think that, hey, look, a goalie like this comes down the pike every 15, 20 years. Boom, maybe we go for it.
The other thing about Askarov.
Go ahead, Ken.
The other thing I just want to say about Askarov is there are teams in the National Hockey League that really need goaltenders right now. One of them is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They have 2 rookie goaltenders, and I'm not saying that Askarov will come in and play right away. He's 2 years, 3 years down the road, but he is a top-notch goaltender. And so you look at Columbus, the Calgary Flames, New York Islanders, Chicago Blackhawks, Carolina Hurricanes. They're all in need of a goaltender. So if he's not going to go to the second round, that's for sure, in my opinion. One of those teams that needs a goaltender is going to snap him up. And the only way that you're going to get him, is to have another pick in the first round. And the only way to do that if you're Detroit is if you make a deal and try to get 2 first-round picks somehow. But I don't think that's going to happen.
All right, guys, we're going to talk more about this on Thursday for sure. Again, that announcement from Gary Bettman will be today at 4:30. So we're going to be watching for that. And it sounds like, according to Bob McKenzie, there will be some draft details and lottery details in this announcement. So again, that is 4:30 Eastern time on NBCSN. You guys tune into that. And Ken, thank you so much for joining us for Downtown Hockey Town today. We will definitely be bringing you back to talk about this one, okay?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the commissioner says, and it's always enjoyable to be on your show. And have a great day. I hope you guys had a good Memorial weekend, too. I know I enjoyed it. I was out on the lake, and I hope you guys had nice barbecue and enjoyed yourself. Art and Daniela.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you so much, Ken. We'll see you soon. And a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockey Town. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. A lot of interesting stuff happening today in the NHL. Again, we will have more on that for you on Thursday. But for now, I'm going to give it to Art for our headliner.
Well, thank you, Daniela. It is time for the headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite. Let's bring in Red Wing power forward. You know, I affectionately call him Big Tony. I think he hates it, but I still do. Of course, I'm talking about Anthony Mantha. And Anthony, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. How long have you been growing the beard?
Since day one of quarantine. It's been a while now. Everyone knows it. Everyone's bored, but I got the beard to keep me company.
This is really an uncertain time. You know, you've grown a beard. I've let my hair grow longer. Yeah, we're all uncertain, but until you hear differently, is your training regimen business as usual for you? Are you just preparing to play hockey again?
It's hard. I mean, right now of what there's talking about doing playoffs, the format, obviously for us in Detroit, we're not going back to hockey anytime soon. The closest we would play would be either September back at training camp, or it would be in December if they're able to play playoffs. So, I mean, trying to stay in shape, working out a couple times a week. But I mean, we're not in our big period where we're 5, 6, 7 times in the gym a week, because if we do start that way, if we don't play before December, we're going to be gassed.
Well, because I saw, I don't know if it was on Instagram or something, but you were on a dock firing golf balls. Now, I want to ask you about that. Were you trying to hit it beyond the body of water into the island that was like 2 miles away or something? Or what was the purpose of that? Or is that just to keep your, that lethal shot you have on the ice kind of together?
Well, for us in Quebec, golf courses opened up on Wednesday. And so Tuesday I was cleaning my clubs, and I found this one golf ball biodegradable that I could hit in the water. So I just fired away.
You're a little bit of an environmentalist. I don't know if fans feel that way. I mean, you really try to be a citizen that way. Use even equipment that I think if you sweat too much, you could be almost naked on the ice, because everything you do has a purpose, environmental purpose, that is.
Yeah, exactly. Some of you that follows me on Instagram might know I actually partnered up with a company that does caps, sweaters, golf shirts, pants out of recycled bottles. So this is an example with my shirt I'm wearing right now. They use 11 bottles to do this shirt, and then the cap is the same. They use 4 bottles to do this cap. So I mean, it's just something I try and keep in line, and if I could do my part, then maybe other people will follow, and it's going to be better for the future.
Well, certainly, and I want to, and I compliment you on that. I mean, really, I say this a lot, and I want this to turn into a mutual admiration society between Anthony and I during this interview. But as far as just one of the top-notch guys, I mean, Anthony could go on and on about how much he admires me, and I'm not going to let him. But I want to, but I want to move on to hockey. I want to go. Yeah, thank you very much. I want to get back to the to October 5th. I think the home opener against Dallas, you score the 4 goals. That second goal where you received the puck at the Dallas blue line and you went straight to the net. To me, that is Anthony Mantha at his best, because when you get moving, and you always talk about moving your feet, you are virtually unstoppable, and you were on that play. When you score 4 goals in a game, you scored them every way, tipping them in, getting a rebound, going to the net. I mean, that is your game, right? I mean, you can pretty much do it all out on the ice.
Obviously, that game felt really good. Confidence level was super high after the Nashville game. Bert Larkin and I had a great first game. So that's exactly how we wanted to start the season, and it just carried into that second game. And to be honest with you, when I scored that second goal, it reminded me of my turning point in juniors. I scored pretty much an exact same goal, 0.8 seconds left in overtime, and that's really where my career started. So it kind of gave me that extra boost of confidence that game to go get the third one. And then things were just rolling. So when I got that pass for the fourth goal from Hronik, it was just a great feeling.
I thought that 4-goal game, I looked at it and said, you know what? He's unstoppable at this point. He finally has arrived, because I know the pro career didn't start off all that great for you in Grand Rapids. You end up breaking your leg, and it took you maybe a while to find your footing. But did you feel in your heart that this was the game where Anthony Mantha emerged as a premier goal scorer in this league?
At that moment, I did. Before all the injuries this year, I really thought this was going to be the year that I was going to explode offensively.
Well, 30 goals is a drop in the bucket for you. I'm looking at 45 to 50 consistently every year, because you can do it. And I know you believe that. Look, what did you always tell me? If you get 5 shots a game, chances are you're going to get some pretty good scoring chances, and you're at least going to get 1 goal.
That's true. That's very true.
So are you aware of how many shots you have during the course of the game? Do you look at the stat sheet in between periods and say, wow, I'm like 4 behind, I better get some shots going?
No, you don't look at the stat sheet, but you do. I mean, if you spend time in the ozone, if you get scoring chances, obviously, it just adds up quick, and you kind of know where your game's at during that game, if you're playing well, if you're not playing well, which details you need to change. And I mean, a game goes by quick, so you need to change your details or improve or do the same thing pretty quick.
You, Larkin, and Bertuzzi are definitively the number 1 line for the Red Wings. Why do you think you guys mesh so well?
3 completely different players, I would say. The skill, speed. Bertuzzi is hardworking in the corners. He's going to get every loose puck. I'm more of a power forward, so I try to win my battles one-on-one. Bring it to the net, and I mean, we're all good playmakers and good finishers, so it goes well together.
When you look at the situation, I know that everybody always wants you on the ice, and we've discussed this before. I constantly joke around and tell your fellow teammates, look, Anthony can't fight. He can't drop the gloves. I mean, because he's so emotional, he's just going to, he gives it 110% every time he's out there. I'm kind of curious, though, in a game where there's contact, you're skating, things happen at a breakneck pace, how difficult is it for you to keep your emotions in check when you see an injustice on the ice and you want to do something about it?
It's hard. I mean, we're all competitive, and we're competitive at a very high level. So as soon as something happens, it's easy for every player on the ice to just try and have your teammates back. And that's why we're playing a team sport, because we want our teammates to have our back, and you have theirs.
But you are aware that people hold their breath every time you start fighting.
I know. I do. I do too, actually.
Oh, really? But you're still going to do it, right?
Yeah, because
I'm not
we're
trying
not
to
going
trap
to be
you here.
stepped on as a team.
All right. Well, I mean, I understand it. I get that. When you look at the team this year, a lot of young players coming in. A guy like Philip Zadina also had a little bit of a rough, rocky start. Maybe is starting to find his way. Are you able to offer anything to these young guys? Because even though you're 24 or 25 years old, you're by far still a very young player. But what can you offer to the young guys that are just coming up? What do you say to them?
I went through the same thing that Z went through. I mean, a couple years in the American League, you finally get your chance to be an NHLer full time, and then unfortunately for him, this year he got injured. And I mean, I've been through that too. So I just tell him to keep his head up. Obviously, he needs to be ready for whenever we're going to hit the ice next year, and try and make the squad full time is his top priority right now.
The margin of error is so thin in this league, and it seemed like every mistake that happened to the Red Wings ended up in the back of your net. But how encouraged are you by what you see, regardless of the record, how hard this team plays, how you guys are united and together, and some of the young talent coming up? Do you think that we're closer than maybe some people believe?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we got plenty of young players to make. And they're going to be good players. I mean, Ras spent his whole season this year in the American League. He had a couple injuries, but once he's healthy and he's confident enough, he's going to be a big part of our team too. Chalowski's the same thing, up and down a little bit. Hronik took a step forward last year. And like I said, Z, if he's ready next year to be a full-time NHLer, he's going to help the team. So it's promising players. And I mean, we're a young group of players here, and I just can't wait to see goals.
When I want to look at your contract situation, you're an unrestricted you're a restricted free agent. I know you want to get a deal done. I know this is really in these uncertain times. Have anything happened contract wise right now? Or do you? I remember a couple of years ago you said, "Look, at this time around, it's probably going to be a bridge deal for me." I know you were looking at this. I think the Red Wings were that this was going to be your long-term deal. Do you still hope to get a long-term deal done? And has anything moved on the contract front, or at this time, nobody knows really what's going on?
At this time, no one knows what's going on. Obviously, there's bigger things to try and settle down before the talks start. Meaning, so all the GMs are speaking together with the NHLPA, the NHL. They're just trying to get hockey back. So that's the main focus right now. For me personally, I do want a long-term deal. I mean, I'm not going to hide away from it. I'll be 26 starting next season, and if I could get that long-term deal, it would be awesome.
What I'm looking at, maybe a lifetime contract for you. How does that sound?
Perfect. I'll take it.
All right, good. Well, all right, there you go. Steve, let's get it done then. But getting back to hockey very, very quickly, I know you're trying to do the best that you can do. How eager are you to get this, to get back on the ice and just start playing again? How frustrating has it been for you?
I mean, it's been a tough year, and then you add this on top of it. Didn't play a lot of hockey this year, that's for sure. Only played 40-something games. So I'm really excited to start whenever that can be. Hopefully sooner than later. Hopefully they play the playoffs, and I could watch some hockey like every other fan out there. And I mean, once that's done, obviously we're going to get a date for when we're going to start playing. And if it's in September, it's going to be exciting. If it's in December, it's going to be even better for the fans, because there's going to be a lot of hockey in a short term of time. So everyone's excited, and hopefully it comes quick.
No, I hope so. You played 43 games this year. You had 16 goals, 22 assists, 38 points. 9 power play points, 6 power play goals. So it's starting to come together for you. I can't wait to see you back on the ice. I mean, whenever the BT Express is rolling, which is most games, the Red Wings are such a much better team. And so, see, I knew it would grow on you. I knew you liked it. So, so with that said, Anthony Mantha, yeah, really, I can tell. Thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate it. It's been so long. I just enjoy talking to you so much. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, there. Yes, definitely you will. All right, there you have it there, Daniela. That was the headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. And Daniela, okay, I know I kind of goofed off on Anthony here, but he's one of my all-time favorite people, just not player. He's just such a great guy to talk to.
Art, I don't think you goofed off at all. I think we were all really excited to hear from him, and that was great. And I know you were really happy to hear from him, and I love your nickname for him, the BT Express.
Yes, we told him that Anthony sounds like he should be, drinking wine and cheese or something. It's a nice name, but as a hockey player, he should be like Tony Mantha, man. I'm Big Tony. I'm BT. And he's, almost mobsterish. And so it's growing on him because we won't let up. Yeah, he is definitely the BT Express. He's just such a great guy. And but if you want him to, I've thought a lot about this, and I'll make this very, very quick. He's a physical player. I think if you try to take that element of fighting away from him, I think that would affect his game. Now, granted, the older he gets, he'll mellow out a little bit, but he's still going to be, he's 6'5", 235 pounds, 240 pounds. He's going to still be a little bit of an enforcer. And there's a couple of players that I think he has their number. So I can't wait till see what he does.
It will be exciting. We're all ready to see them back out on the ice, including Anthony Mantha especially. And now, Art, we're going to get into Let's Socialize and bring back our favorite person, Carly Johnston. It's Let's Socialize presented by AAA. Carly has been all over the social media accounts as always, and I hope you guys sent her some good questions for today. Carly, what'd you get?
They did, Daniela. I've got some questions for you guys. We're going to start off with Art. We want to know, what is your favorite Red Wings game and why? So, like, of all time, favorite Red Wing game and why?
There's so many. I would have to say perhaps my favorite Red Wings game really was the triple overtime game in Carolina. Carolina won the first game in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2002. The Red Wings won the second game, and then the third game was on ABC television. Al Michaels was calling, and that was a game where the Red Wings tied it up late. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? If Carolina wins this game, they're up 2-1, and Game 4 is in their building. This could change the whole complexion of the series. And then Sergei, I think, won the draw. He passes it to Nick. Nick across the point to Brent Hall, and his one-timer, ties it up with about 1:30 to go. And then three periods later, Matthew Dandino, who didn't play much, was fresh off the ice. He made the play happen. Igor gets the puck. He scores in triple overtime. So I think that game, as far as drama, Dominik Hasek had some big saves in overtime. He was absolutely brilliant. I think that's probably the game. And I also think that's the game because even our good buddies in the Canadian press, who were always voting for the big strapping Canadian lads for the Norris Trophy, even though there were better players that should have won it, I think that, that's where Nick played, I think, over 60 minutes, over an entire game in that triple overtime. And that was his coming out party where he could not, I told him on the bus, you cannot be denied now. You cannot be denied. Even the Canadian press is going to have to give you your due. And, he thought I was crazy, but anyway, I would really have to say that game as far as pure drama. And then I will also lump in the 2002 Western Conference playoff final between the Red Wings and Colorado. As far as pure hockey, as far as a pure hockey series, that's the best hockey I've ever seen, without question. But game, it's still that Carolina game.
Love it. And I love the passion you have for that game. Without a doubt, sounds like your favorite one. Okay, and now Daniela, what do you miss most from the season?
You know what? I think you talked to Brad Galley about this earlier too, and I couldn't agree with him more. Just the people in general. Of course, I miss you guys. I'm lucky enough to see you virtually, but I miss seeing everybody that works at the arena, and I miss the fans. Everyone's always so awesome. The energy at the arena is always great. And even, it was a tough season for the Red Wings, and the fans were great all season long. So really, that makes what we do worth it, and that's really what I miss the most about it.
100%. I could not agree with you more. Okay. And then now we got asked who our favorite Tiger player of all time is. Mine is Al Kaline for obvious reasons. Stand-up guy both on and off the field. But Art, what about you?
That again is a tough one. I love Sweet Lou Whitaker. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I absolutely love Lou. But I think the guy that I really like because he had a really sense of humor, and I love Jim Northrup, Mickey Stanley, Aurelio Rodriguez. Again, once I start thinking about it, it's like you don't want to you don't want to leave anybody off. But I think it has to be Storm and Norman Cash, just because he was such a character. And when Norm Cash, I don't know if it was Nolan Ryan or Steve Busby who threw a no-hitter against the Tigers. It was probably Nolan Ryan, and he went up in his last at bat where Nolan Ryan was just, I don't know, he struck out like 27 guys or something, threw no hitter against him. His last time up at bat, instead of a bat, he brought up a table leg, an actual table leg that he took, unscrewed off the clubhouse and went up there, as a joke, to kind of break the passion. So I think that, we tragically lost Norm way too early, but I just think as far as the whole personality, and he won the batting title in I think he batted like 361 or something back in 61 or 363. Anyway, he won the batting title. I just think he was just such a character. I often think about Norm Cash, and I just laugh. And then but now I'm thinking Willie the Wonder. How can you not say Willie Horton? Detroit's own, and then a guy who was the best pinch hitter in baseball history. William Gates Brown, the Gator. I love the Gator too. So boy, that's a tough one. But for today, the way the wind's blowing, it's blowing towards Norm Cash.
I know that was really hard for you, Art. You couldn't just pick one. Okay, well, now let's transition to something I've been waiting to talk about all show. All right, let's bring up this tweet. Art, what happened here? Were you trying to text someone? Were you trying to search something? Were you trying to just start a conversation with anyone that would respond? What was going on there?
I am not a big Lionel Richie fan. I mean, he's okay, and he was great with the Commodores, but he has that song, Hello, and then I guess Adele has one too. And I just figured, what the hell? Why don't I just write no hashtag or anything? Just write hello and see what happens. It was amazing how many people responded. I mean, it says retweets and 14 likes, but I mean, but I had a lot of people say hello back to me. I just, it's experimentation. Yeah, I know. I know, Curly, you did.
My favorite response was from one of our social guys, Andrew Kristoff, and his response, I could hear you saying it in my head. Okay, ready? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Red and White Authority. I read Andrew's response to you, and I was like, I could hear him saying it.
Well, Andrew always says that to me. Andrew is the technical producer. He puts them all together. I just basically just ask questions, and then I send it to Andrew. He mixes it and does his magic on it. But he's always saying that. But you know where we work. We work in one of the star rooms on game day, and Dan Manis. Stacy Burlingame. Only Dana doesn't do it. Yeah, Michael. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Red and White Authority. Everyone says that to me, but I guess that's my trademark. Yeah. I guess it must be my tagline. But yeah. I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was,
It was hilarious. It made it to the show. It made me laugh out loud.
Right. Well, then I was thinking, because the Beatles did a song, Hello, Goodbye, or something. You say hello, I say goodbye, or I say hello and you say goodbye. Hello, hello. I don't know why you say goodbye when
Yeah.
I say hello. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe the next time I'll just write goodbye. But then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, no,
There you
maybe
go.
people think, you never know in these trouble. They'll think, oh my God, is he
Part
depressed?
two.
What do you mean goodbye? And that's all I would need
I
is
don't think anyone would
Livonia
ever
police
think
to show up. I don't know. I'm thinking, God, like
This is taking
a
it to
wellness
worse,
check.
Maybe just stick with hello.
Knock on the door. Hey, are you all right?
Oh goodness. Well, I had to
Art,
get down
you're
to
so
the bottom of that. I'm
short-winded on
happy to know
Twitter.
that you were trying to. Yeah, Art's on everything. Art's a man of social media.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have enough characters to fit what you were really thinking on Twitter, so you just went with hello.
Didn't they expand it? Isn't it more than 140 now? Can't you kind of write
No
a
matter
mini
how
War and
many
Peace?
characters there are, you would overfill it regardless.
Yeah, okay. Touche, Carly and Danielle. I have to give that to you. Right. I'll have to give it to you.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks for having me on. And you guys, thanks so much for sending in your questions. What a great show once again.
Thank you, Carly, and thank you for finding that Art Regner tweet. That was a highlight of the show today. And a big thank you to our friends at AAA as well. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. Art, we have come to the end of the show again today, and what a great one it was. We had some great guests, and hey, even some breaking news. We're going to have that NHL press conference at 4:30 today, so I know that we will be listening to Gary Bettman then. And aside from that, we're going to have some Tigers Classic games too. We've got All-Star Week this week, so we're going to be tuning into those, including the 71 game that you quizzed me and Carly on today.
Right. Yeah. Tonight is must-see TV. No doubt about it. The 71 All-Star Classic. You're going to see the grand old lady Tiger Stadium again. But All-Star games, Major League Baseball, their All-Star games are by far the best. I think it's just the nature of the sport. Except if you're Pete Rose, decking Ray Fosse at home plate, guys usually don't get hurt, but they can play all out and they go after one another. So I'm really looking forward to this whole week of classic games on Fox Sports Detroit. The All-Star games are one of my all-time favorite. It's must viewing. It's a rite of passage. It's the midway point, at least here in Michigan, of summer. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to it.
I am too, Art. I am too. I'll be watching all of those games this week. And again, tuning in Gary Bettman at 4:30 today. And we will talk a lot about that on Thursday. We've also got some great guests lined up for Thursday too, including Kevin Allen. And we've got Red Wings Luke Glendening, alternate captain. He's going to join us. So that will be a great, great interview. You guys won't want to miss any of that. And make sure you follow, subscribe, and turn on your live photo notifications for the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. You guys won't miss a minute of it. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.